Ambassador HFY pressed her 6 fingers against the cool surface of the navigation console. The blue light from the holographic star map painted strange shadows across her pale face. She had been staring at the same section of space for 3 hours now, and still could not believe what she was seeing. The map simply ended. Not in the way maps usually ended, with unexplored regions marked in gray or dotted lines showing possible star systems. This was different. This was a hard line, as if someone had taken a knife and cut the galaxy in half. Beyond that line, there was nothing but empty black space on the display. HFY had been a cartographer for the Vorthon Confederacy for over 50 years. Her people were famous throughout the galaxy for making the best star maps. They had mapped trade routes between thousands of worlds. They had charted safe passage through dangerous nebulae. They had found shortcuts that saved merchant ships weeks of travel time. But this section of space made no sense to her. She touched the control panel with her long fingers and zoomed in on the boundary line. A small text box appeared in the corner of the display. It read, "Human Territory Passage. Restricted by Galactic Treaty 2847, no. Unauthorized vessels permitted." Beyond this point, HFY had never heard of Treaty 2847. She had never even heard of humans before today. She pulled up the treaty database and searched for any reference to this agreement. The file that came up was surprisingly short, only 2 pages long, with most of the important details marked as classified. All she could read was that every major power in the galaxy had signed it 300 years ago. The Krillian Empire, the Vorthon Confederacy, the merchant guilds, the Federation of Free Worlds, even the wild Void Runners who respected no laws at all. Every single government had agreed that human space was off limits. This puzzled HFY more than anything else. In all her years as a diplomat, she had never seen universal agreement on anything. The galaxy was a place of constant conflict and competition. Species fought over trade routes, mining rights, and territory. Even simple navigation treaties took decades to negotiate. Yet somehow every civilization had agreed to stay away from human space. Without argument, without demands for compensation or special privileges, they had all simply signed their names and promised to respect the boundary. HFY left her office and walked down the long corridor to the archives. The Vorthon government kept detailed records of every species they had ever encountered. If humans existed, there would be files about them somewhere in the vast electronic library. The archives were managed by an old Vorthon named HFY. His skin had turned pale green with age, and his movements were slow and careful. He had worked in the archives for over a century and claimed to have read every file at least twice. Humans, HFY repeated when HFY asked him. Yes, I remember those files. Very strange case. Very unusual. He led her to a private reading room and activated the security locks. Then he pulled up the human files on the main display screen. HFY's heart sank. The files were almost completely blank. Every page was covered with black rectangles where text had been removed by government censors. Whole paragraphs were missing. Sometimes entire pages contained nothing but the words "classified, level 9 clearance required." "This is all we have?" she asked. HFY nodded sadly. "I am afraid so. These files used to contain much more information, but it was all removed about 200 years ago. Orders came from the highest levels of government. Very mysterious." HFY scrolled through page after page of redacted text. Occasionally, a few words had escaped the censors. She saw fragments like, "First contact protocols failed," and "recommended immediate withdrawal," and "no conventional weapons effective." But one phrase appeared over and over again in different reports, in different languages written by different species. It was the only thing that had not been classified in any of the files. They were already waiting for us. The phrase appeared in Vorthon military reports. It appeared in Krillian intelligence briefings. It appeared in Merchant Guild trading logs and Federation diplomatic cables. Every species that had apparently encountered humans had written the same thing. They were already waiting for us. HFY spent the rest of the day reading every available document about human space. She found shipping records that showed merchant vessels avoiding the region entirely, even though it would save them time and fuel. She found military patrol reports with huge blank areas where human territory was located. She found scientific surveys that simply skipped over dozens of star systems without explanation. It was as if the entire galaxy had agreed to pretend that section of space did not exist. That evening, HFY called her supervisor. Director Horthkin from her apartment. The director's image appeared on her communication screen, his expression tired and slightly annoyed. Zexhai, it is quite late. What is so urgent that it cannot wait until morning? Sir, I have been reviewing the star maps for the Outer Rim territories and I have found something very strange. There is an entire region marked as human space that I have never heard of before. The director's expression changed instantly. His eyes narrowed and his skin tone shifted to a deeper blue, which Zexhai recognized as a sign of anxiety. I see, he said carefully. And what exactly do you want to know about this region? Everything, sir. Who are the humans? When did we first make contact with them? Why is their space restricted? I have looked at the files, but they are almost completely classified. Director Horthkin was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was very soft. Zexhai, you are one of our best cartographers. Your work has been excellent for many years. But I must give you some advice. Stop looking into human space. Stop asking questions about humans. There are some things in this galaxy that are better left alone. But sir, as a scientist, I need to understand. No, the director interrupted. You do not need to understand. None of us need to understand. That is the whole point of the treaty. We agreed to stay away and they agreed to leave us alone. It has worked well for 3 centuries. They agreed to leave us alone? What does that mean? Director Horthkin closed his eyes and rubbed his forehead with one hand. It means exactly what it sounds like, Zexhai. The humans could have taken whatever they wanted from us. They could have conquered our worlds or enslaved our people or destroyed our civilizations. Instead, they offered us a deal. We stay out of their space and they stay out of ours. But why would they make such an offer unless they had something to hide? Perhaps they do have something to hide, the director said quietly. Perhaps that is exactly why we should not look for it. Good night, Zexhai. Please remember what I have told you. The communication screen went dark, leaving Zexhai alone in her apartment with more questions than answers. She walked to her window and looked out at the night sky. Somewhere beyond those stars was human space. Somewhere out there was a mystery that the entire galaxy had agreed to ignore. But Zexhai was a scientist and an explorer. Ignoring mysteries was not in her nature. She made a decision that would change everything. Tomorrow she would find someone who had actually encountered the humans. Someone who could tell her the truth about what lay beyond the edge of the map. Someone who could explain why an entire galaxy was afraid of a species that nobody was allowed to talk about. 3 days after her conversation with Director Horthkin, Zexhai found herself on Trader's Rest, a neutral space station that floated at the junction of 5 major trade routes. The station was always busy, always crowded with beings from dozens of different species. It was also the kind of place where information could be bought and sold like any other commodity. Zexhai had spent her life savings to get here. She had used all her vacation time and told her supervisor she was visiting family on the outer worlds. If they discovered what she was really doing, her career would be over. But she had to know the truth about human space. She found the person she was looking for in a dark cantina on the lower levels of the station. Fleet Admiral Korthvin was easy to spot even in the dim lighting. He was enormous even for a Krillian, with 4 powerful arms covered in battle scars. His skin was the deep red color that showed his age and experience. Most Krillians turned that shade only after decades of warfare. Korthvin was drinking alone at a corner table, which surprised Zexhai. Krillian military officers usually traveled with large groups of soldiers and supporters. This one seemed to prefer privacy. She approached his table slowly, keeping her hands visible. Krillians did not like surprises. Admiral Korthvin? My name is Zexhai. I am a cartographer with the Vorthan Confederacy. I was hoping we could talk. The big Krillian looked up at her with eyes like burning coals. I know who you are, he said in a voice that sounded like grinding stone. Word travels fast on stations like this. You have been asking questions about humans. Zexhai felt a chill run down her spine. Yes, sir. I was hoping you might be able to tell me about your experiences with them. Korthvin stared at her for a long moment, then gestured to the empty chair across from him. Sit down. Order something to drink. This conversation will take a while. Zexhai sat down and ordered a glass of water. The Admiral drained his own glass in one gulp, then called for another. I have been retired for 15 years, Korthvin began, but I still have nightmares about the Epsilon incident. Do you know what that was? Zexhai shook her head. Of course you do not. It was classified at the highest levels. Wiped from all official records. The Krillian Empire pretends it never happened. He took another drink. But I was there. I commanded the 3rd Assault Fleet. I saw everything. The Admiral's 4 hands began to shake slightly as he spoke. It was 47 years ago. Our intelligence services had discovered what they thought was a primitive human colony on the edge of their space. The report said the humans had only basic technology. No shields. No advanced weapons. Perfect targets for conquest. Zexhai leaned forward. What happened? The High Command decided to test human defenses. They wanted to see how much resistance we would face if we invaded their territory, so they sent 3 full battle fleets, 900 ships total, the largest force the Krillian Empire had ever assembled for a single operation. Korthvin paused to order another drink. His hands were shaking more now. We jumped into human space expecting an easy victory. Our plan was simple. Destroy their orbital defenses, bombard their cities from space, and land ground troops to secure the planet. We expected to be done in less than 6 hours. But something went wrong. The Admiral laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. Wrong. Everything went wrong from the very first moment. We dropped out of faster-than-light travel and found ourselves surrounded. Surrounded by what? Human ships. Hundreds of them. They had been waiting for us. Korthvin's voice dropped to a whisper. They knew exactly when we would arrive. They knew exactly where we would appear in normal space. They had positioned themselves perfectly to intercept our entire fleet. Zexhai felt her skin turning pale. How could they have known? That was just the beginning. When our sensors tried to lock onto their ships, the readings made no sense. The computers said the human vessels were there and not there at the same time. They seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Our targeting systems could not get a fix on them. The Admiral finished his drink and continued. Then we tried to attack. We fired every weapon we had. Plasma cannons, particle beams, fusion torpedoes. Everything bounced off their hulls or passed right through them as if they were not solid matter. What did the humans do? Nothing at first. They just sat there and let us waste our ammunition. When we had fired everything we had, one of their ships sent us a message. Korthvin closed his eyes as if trying to remember the exact words. The voice was calm and polite. Very human-sounding. It said, "We know you were ordered to attack our colony. Your soldiers are just following commands from their government. No one needs to die today. Power down your weapons and prepare to return home. Did you obey?" The Admiral's laugh was bitter. Are you joking? We were Krillian warriors. We do not surrender to anyone, especially not to some unknown species with strange ships. Admiral Vexthor, our fleet commander, ordered all ships to ram the human vessels. If we could not shoot them, we would destroy them by impact. What happened then? The humans disabled every weapon system on every ship in our fleet. All 900 vessels. They did it simultaneously in the space of a few seconds. Our engines still worked. Our life support still functioned. But every gun, every missile launcher, every defensive system stopped working completely. Zexhai stared at the Admiral in shock. How is that possible? I do not know. Our engineers spent months trying to figure it out after we got home. They found no physical damage to any of the systems. No signs of sabotage or computer viruses. The weapons simply would not fire, as if the humans had somehow convinced them to stop working. Korthvin ordered another drink. Then came the really frightening part. The human ships opened communication channels to every single vessel in our fleet, not just the command ships. Every ship. And they addressed each captain by name. They knew your names. They knew everything about us. Names, ranks, family members, service records, personal preferences. The human who contacted my ship knew I had 2 sons and a daughter. He knew their names and ages. He knew I collected ancient weapons as a hobby. He knew things about me that are not in any official files. The Admiral's voice became very quiet. Then he told me something that changed my entire understanding of the galaxy. He said, "Admiral Korthvin, we have been watching your species develop for over 2,000 years. We know your military tactics better than you do. We know your technology better than your own engineers. We have been preparing for this encounter since before your great-grandfather was born." Zexhai felt a cold knot forming in her stomach. They had been watching you for 2,000 years? That is what he said. And then he proved it. He showed me surveillance footage of Krillian military bases that I thought were secret. He showed me recordings of private conversations between our highest military leaders. He showed me detailed plans of weapon systems that were still in development. The Admiral drained his glass again. The human told me that they had been observing not just the Krillian Empire, but every major civilization in the galaxy. They had been studying us, learning our languages, understanding our cultures. They knew more about us than we knew about ourselves. What did they want? That was the strangest part. They did not want anything. The human said, "We are not your enemies, Admiral. We do not want your territory or your resources. We just want you to go home and tell your leaders what you have seen here today." Korthvin looked directly at Zexai. "So that is what we did. We went home. The entire fleet jumped back to Krillian space with our tails between our legs. And when we made our reports to High Command, they immediately classified everything and ordered us never to speak of it again. But you are speaking of it now." The Admiral nodded sadly. "I am old and tired, and I have been carrying this secret for too long. Besides, I think the humans want their story to be told eventually. Otherwise, why would they have let us live?" Zexai sat in silence for several minutes, trying to process what she had heard. Finally, she asked, "Do you think they are still watching us?" Korthvin smiled for the first time since their conversation began. "Young cartographer, I am absolutely certain they are still watching us. They are probably watching us right now." Admiral Korthvin's words haunted Zexai for weeks after their meeting on Trader's Rest. The idea that humans had been watching galactic civilization for thousands of years seemed impossible. But the old Krillian warrior had been completely serious. His fear had been real. Zexai decided she needed to dig deeper into galactic history. If humans had been observing other species for millennia, there might be evidence of their presence in ancient records. She needed to find the oldest, most complete archives in the galaxy. That search led her to the Ethereal Sanctum, a massive space station orbiting a dying star in the galactic core. The Ethereals were among the oldest known species in the galaxy. They had evolved beyond physical form millions of years ago, and now existed as beings of pure energy. Their archives contained records spanning geological ages. Getting permission to visit the sanctum took months of paperwork and diplomatic negotiations. The Ethereals rarely allowed physical beings into their domain. They considered most younger species to be too primitive and short-lived to understand their vast perspective on galactic history. When Zexai finally arrived at the sanctum, she was amazed by its size and beauty. The station was built from some kind of crystalline material that seemed to capture and amplify starlight. Corridors and chambers twisted through multiple dimensions, creating spaces that appeared larger on the inside than the outside. The archive keeper who greeted her was a shifting pattern of golden light roughly the size of a Vorthan adult. It spoke without words, projecting thoughts directly into her mind. "Welcome, young seeker. We are told you wish to learn about the humans. Few ask about them anymore. Most prefer comfortable ignorance." Zexai tried to speak aloud, but the ethereal interrupted her thoughts before she could form words. "We know why you are here. We have been observing your investigation with interest. You seek truth about the Watchers who guard the outer darkness. Come. We will show you what your government does not want you to know." The archive keeper led Zexai through corridors that seemed to bend space and time around them. They passed chambers filled with floating crystalline data storage units, each one containing the complete history of entire civilizations. The scale of information was overwhelming. They finally arrived in a circular chamber with walls made of transparent energy fields. With a gesture from the archive keeper, the walls came alive with holographic images from the distant past. "Behold," the ethereal said, "the true history of your galaxy." The first images showed star maps from over 50,000 years ago, when most current civilizations were still primitive creatures crawling in the mud of their homeworlds. Zexai was amazed to see that even in those ancient times, certain regions of space were marked as forbidden or dangerous. These areas, the archive keeper explained, highlighting sections of the map, were avoided by the first starfaring races. Not because they were empty, but because ships that entered them never returned. The images changed, showing surveillance records from various time periods. Zexai saw massive structures appearing and disappearing on barren worlds. She saw energy signatures that defied known physics. She saw strange distortions in space-time that suggested the presence of technology far beyond anything the galaxy's known species possessed. The early explorers called them the Watchers, the ethereal continued, beings who seemed to observe but never interfered. Structures would appear overnight on dead planets, scan everything in the surrounding star systems, then vanish without a trace. Were these structures built by humans? We believe so. though we had no contact with humanity at that time. The technology signatures matched what we would later encounter when humans finally revealed themselves to galactic civilization. The holographic display shifted again, showing more recent events from about 3 centuries ago. HFY watched as fleets from various species approached the edges of what was now known as human space. In every case, the same pattern repeated. The ships would cross the boundary, disappear from all sensors, then reappear days later at their point of origin with no memory of what had happened to them. This continued for decades, the archive keeper explained. Every major power sent expeditions into human territory. None of them ever reached their destinations. The crews would return home confused and disoriented, with gaps in their memories and sensor logs that had been completely wiped. What changed? HFY asked. The humans decided it was time to make formal contact. 300 years ago, they sent ambassadors to every major government in the galaxy simultaneously. The meetings all happened on the same day at the same time, despite the fact that many of the capital worlds were hundreds of light years apart. The display showed images from those first diplomatic encounters. HFY saw human representatives meeting with Krillian emperors, fourth-hand councils, merchant guild leaders, and dozens of other species she recognized from her diplomatic training. The humans made the same offer to everyone, the archive keeper continued. They proposed a simple treaty. All galactic powers would agree to stay out of human space, and in return, humans would not interfere with the development of other civilizations. That seems like a fair deal, HFY said. The ethereal's light patterns shifted in what might have been amusement. Fair? Young one, you do not understand what the humans were really offering. Let us show you why every government in the galaxy signed that treaty within hours of being presented with it. The holographic chamber filled with new images. These showed human technology in action. HFY watched ships that could travel between galaxies in minutes. She saw weapons that could destroy entire star systems with a single shot. She saw defensive systems that could stop any attack by simply refusing to let it exist. But most disturbing of all were the surveillance records. The humans showed each government complete recordings of their most secret activities, military plans, scientific research, private conversations between leaders, even personal details about individual citizens. The humans had been watching and recording everything for thousands of years. They knew every state secret, the archive keeper explained. They knew every military weakness. They knew every political scandal and every personal failing of every leader in the galaxy. They had been preparing for this moment of contact for millennia. HFY felt sick to her stomach. They had been spying on us. Not spying, studying. There is a difference, though the result is the same. The humans demonstrated that they could have conquered or destroyed any civilization in the galaxy at any time they chose. Instead, they offered partnership and protection. Protection from what? The archive keeper's light patterns darkened. That is the question that few dare to ask, young seeker. Protection from the things that exist in the void between galaxies. The things that hunger for the destruction of all organized matter and energy. The holographic display changed again, showing images from beyond the galactic rim. HFY saw vast shapes moving in the darkness between star systems. Things so large that entire solar systems looked like specks of dust next to them, things that seemed to eat light and matter and leave behind nothing but empty space. These entities have been pressing against the boundaries of our galaxy for millions of years, the archive keeper explained. They seek to consume all life, all consciousness, all organized structure in the universe. The only thing that has kept them at bay is a barrier of energy that surrounds our galaxy. A barrier maintained by whom? By the humans, young one. For countless ages, while other species have explored and traded and warred among themselves, humanity has stood guard at the edge of everything. They have been holding back forces that would devour every world, every star, every living being in our galaxy. HFY stared at the images in horror. How long have they been fighting this war? Since before your species learned to use tools. Since before most current civilizations existed. The humans evolved not just intelligence and technology, but a sense of cosmic responsibility that drove them to become guardians of all life in the galaxy. The holographic display faded, leaving HFY alone with the archive keeper in the crystalline chamber. Now you understand, the ethereal said, why the galactic treaty exists. Human space is not just territory to be respected. It is a fortress wall that protects everything you know and love. The humans could have ruled the galaxy as emperors, but instead they chose to serve as its protectors. Zexai felt tears running down her face. Why are you telling me this? Why reveal the truth now? The archive keeper's light pattern shifted to deep blue, which Zexai had learned indicated sadness or concern. Because the barrier is weakening, young one. After millions of years of constant pressure, the defenses that hold back the void are beginning to fail. Soon humanity will need more than just their own strength to maintain the wall between order and chaos. What does that mean for the rest of us? It means the age of comfortable ignorance is ending. It means the galaxy will soon need to choose between facing the truth about what lies beyond the stars, or watching everything they have built disappear into darkness. The archive keeper began to fade away. Go home, young seeker. Tell your people what you have learned. Prepare them for the day when the humans will need allies instead of just subjects to protect. As Zexai left the ethereal sanctum, she carried with her knowledge that would change everything. The galaxy was not what she had thought it was. Humanity was not what anyone had thought they were. And the real war for survival had not even begun yet. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was called within days of Zexai's return from the ethereal sanctum. Word of her discoveries had spread quickly through diplomatic channels, causing panic in government buildings across dozens of worlds. Leaders who had been content to ignore human space for 3 centuries suddenly demanded answers. The council chamber on New Geneva Station was the largest meeting space in known galactic civilization. Representatives from 47 different species filled the massive hall, their voices creating a chaos of different languages and emotional displays. Krillian delegates roared their anger. Vorthon diplomats spoke in rapid, nervous whispers. Merchant Guild representatives calculated the economic impact of the revelations on their data tablets. Zexai sat in the observer's gallery, watching the chaos she had accidentally created. Director Horthkin sat beside her, his skin pale blue with stress. He had not spoken to her since she submitted her report to the Vorthon government. This is what happens when people ask too many questions, he muttered under his breath. The council chairman, an elderly centaurian with silver skin and 3 eyes, struggled to maintain order in the chamber. He had been calling for quiet for over an hour, but the representatives were too agitated to listen. Finally, a new voice cut through the noise. It was calm and clear, speaking in perfect galactic standard, though no one could see who was talking. If we may have your attention, the voice said, we believe we can answer your questions. The chamber fell silent immediately. Every delegate looked around, trying to identify the speaker. Then, near the center of the hall, the air began to shimmer and distort. A human woman materialized out of nothing. She was tall and slender, wearing simple gray clothing that seemed to shift and change color depending on the angle of view. Her skin was pale, her hair was dark, and her eyes were the most unusual thing about her. They seemed to contain entire star fields, as if she was looking out at the universe from somewhere very far away. Behind her, more humans appeared. A dozen of them representing different ages and ethnicities, all with the same strange, distant look in their eyes. They had not used doors or transportation. They had simply appeared in the chamber as if stepping out of empty space. The council chairman stammered for words. You were not invited to this session. This is a closed meeting of galactic governments. The human woman smiled gently. We know, but we felt it was time to address the concerns that have been raised about our presence in the galaxy. My name is Sarah Chen. I speak for humanity in matters concerning other species. A Krillian delegate stood up, his forearms trembling with rage. How dare you intrude on our sovereign assembly? You have violated every diplomatic protocol. Sarah Chen turned to look at him, her expression remaining calm. General Vexnoth, we apologize for the breach of protocol, but given that this meeting is specifically about humanity, we thought our input might be valuable. The Krillian's eyes widened. How do you know my name? How did you even know this meeting was taking place? We know many things, General. We have been observing galactic civilization for a very long time. We know about your government's plans to increase military spending by 30% next year. We know about the secret weapons research facility on Krylos Prime. We know about your son's application to join the Imperial Academy. General Vexnoth sank back into his chair, his red skin turning pale with shock. Sarah Chen addressed the entire chamber. We understand why you are frightened. You have learned that humanity has been present in your galaxy far longer than you realized. You have learned that we possess capabilities beyond your current understanding. You want to know why we have remained hidden and what our true intentions are. A Vorthan delegate stood up nervously. Yes, that is exactly what we want to know. Are you our allies or our enemies? Are you protectors or conquerors? We are neither, Sarah Chen replied. We are gardeners. She gestured, and the air above the chamber filled with a holographic display of the galaxy. But this was not the galaxy as the delegates knew it. This was a living system, with energy flowing between star systems like blood through veins. Trade routes pulsed with different colors. Cultural exchanges appeared as streams of light connecting different worlds. The rise and fall of civilizations showed up as bright flares and fading glows. For millions of years, Sarah Chen explained, humanity has been cultivating intelligence throughout this galaxy. We planted seeds of curiosity in young species who were just discovering fire. We nudged dying civilizations away from extinction and toward survival. We prevented wars that would have destroyed promising cultures before they could contribute to the greater whole. The display zoomed in to show specific examples. The delegates watched as human agents, disguised as members of various species, provided crucial information at key moments in history. They saw humans preventing natural disasters, stopping plagues, and guiding technological development. You manipulated us, shouted a representative from the Federation of Free Worlds. You controlled our entire development. Sarah Chen's expression remained patient. We guided. We protected. We ensured that when the time came for all species to face what lies beyond this galaxy, you would be ready to stand together. What lies beyond the galaxy? Asked the council chairman. The holographic display expanded, showing the vast darkness between galaxies. Shapes moved in that darkness. Things so large that entire star systems looked like dust motes beside them. Things that consumed light and matter and left behind nothing but empty void. These entities, Sarah Chen said, have been pressing against the boundaries of our galaxy for eons. They seek to unmake all organized matter, all consciousness, all life. They are older than the oldest stars, and their hunger is infinite. The delegates stared at the display in growing horror. Some of them began to understand what they were seeing. The barriers that hold them back, Sarah Chen continued, are maintained by humanity. Every human in existence is part of a vast network of consciousness that spans dimensions. We are the immune system of this galaxy, fighting a war that most species cannot even perceive. A merchant guild representative stood up, his voice shaking. How long have you been fighting this war? Since before your ancestors learned to use stone tools, since before most of your species existed. We evolved not just intelligence, but a cosmic responsibility that compelled us to become guardians of all life in this region of space. The holographic display showed images of the galactic barrier. It appeared as a shimmering wall of energy that completely surrounded their spiral arm. Beyond it, the hungry entities pressed against the defenses, probing for weaknesses. This is why our space is restricted, Sarah Chen explained. Not to keep you out, but to keep us focused on our duty. Every human world, every human ship, every human mind is part of the defense network. We cannot afford distractions when the survival of everything depends on our vigilance. An ethereal representative materialized in the chamber, its light patterns showing deep concern. The barriers are weakening, it said. Our archives record increasing stress fractures in the dimensional walls. Sarah Chen nodded sadly. Yes, after millions of years of constant pressure, our defenses are beginning to fail. The entities beyond the rim are growing stronger and more persistent. Soon we will need more than just our own strength to maintain the walls between order and chaos. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. What are you asking of us? The council chairman finally said. We are asking you to grow up, Sarah Chen replied. For 3 centuries you have been content to let us handle the real threats while you focused on trade disputes and territorial conflicts. The age of ignorance is ending. The time has come for the entire galaxy to understand what is at stake. She gestured again, and the holographic display showed possible futures. In some timelines, the barrier held in galactic civilization continued to flourish. In others, the defenses failed and everything was consumed by the hungry darkness. The choice is yours, Sarah Chen said. You can continue to pretend that the threats beyond the rim do not exist and watch everything you have built disappear into the void. Or you can join us in the real war that has been fought in your name for millions of years. A long silence filled the chamber. Finally, General Vexanath stood up again, his expression grim but determined. "What do you need from us?" he asked. Sarah Chen smiled, and for the first time her expression showed hope. "We need allies who understand the true nature of reality. We need species who are willing to expand their consciousness beyond the physical universe. We need partners who can help us hold the line against the end of everything." "And if we refuse?" Sarah Chen's smile faded. "Then we will continue to protect you as long as we can. But when the barriers finally fail, ignorance will not save you from what comes after." The human delegation began to fade away, returning to wherever they had come from. "We will give you time to consider," Sarah Chen said as her image became transparent. "But do not take too long. The entities beyond the rim grow stronger every day, and our strength has limits." The humans vanished completely, leaving the galactic delegates alone with the knowledge that would change everything they thought they knew about the universe. The weeks following the emergency council session were unlike anything in recorded galactic history. Governments that had been enemies for centuries suddenly found themselves working together. Ancient trade disputes were set aside. Territorial conflicts were forgotten. Every major civilization began preparing for a war they could barely understand. Zexai found herself at the center of these preparations. Her discovery had started the chain of events that revealed humanity's true purpose, and now she was appointed as the Vorthan Confederacy's liaison to the Human Defense Network. It was a job that no one knew how to do, because no one had ever communicated with humans on this level before. She was working late in her new office on New Geneva Station when Sarah Chen appeared beside her desk. The human woman materialized out of empty air, as if stepping through an invisible door. "Hello, Zexai," Sarah said with a gentle smile. "I hope we are not disturbing your work." Zexai had been expecting this visit for days, but she still jumped in her chair. "Not at all. I have been hoping to speak with you about the integration protocols." "Yes, the protocols. That is why we are here." Sarah gestured, and suddenly they were no longer in Zexai's office. They were standing in a vast chamber filled with swirling patterns of light and energy. "We thought it might be easier to show you what we are dealing with rather than trying to explain it in words." Zexai looked around in amazement. The chamber seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. She could see layers of reality stretching away in directions that her mind could not fully comprehend. "Where are we?" "This is one of our monitoring stations," Sarah explained. "It exists partially in normal space and partially in the dimensional framework that underlies reality itself. From here we can observe the barriers that protect your galaxy." As Zexai's eyes adjusted to the strange environment, she began to make out details in the swirling patterns around them. The lights were not random. They were organized into complex networks that pulsed with information and energy. "Each point of light represents a human consciousness," Sarah said, following Zexai's gaze. "Every member of our species is connected to this network. We share our thoughts, our observations, our strength. It allows us to coordinate our defenses across impossible distances." "How many humans are there?" Sarah paused, as if calculating. "In terms that you would understand, approximately 14 billion. But the number is not really important. What matters is that we function as a single organism when necessary." The patterns of light suddenly shifted, drawing Zexai's attention to one section of the chamber. Here the network appeared strained and flickering. Some of the connections between points of light were growing dim. "This is why we need allies," Sarah explained. "The constant pressure from the entities beyond the rim is exhausting our network. We have been fighting this war for so long that we are beginning to reach our limits." "What kind of help do you need from the other species?" "Not military assistance, at least not in the traditional sense. The entities beyond the rim cannot be fought with conventional weapons. They exist in states of reality that physical matter cannot affect." Sarah gestured, and the chamber around them changed. Now Zexai could see beyond the barriers that surrounded the galaxy. In the darkness between star systems, vast shapes moved with malevolent intelligence. They pressed against walls of energy that flickered and sparked under the constant assault. "These beings feed on consciousness itself," Sarah continued. "They consume organized thought, structured reality, the very concept of existence. The only defense against them is a coordinated effort of focused minds working together." "You want us to join your mental network?" "Not exactly. Most species lack the neural complexity to interface directly with our collective consciousness. But there are other ways to contribute. Other species can provide support, backup processing power, alternative perspectives that help us maintain the barriers." As Sarah spoke, New figures began to materialize in the chamber. Zexhai recognized some of them as representatives from the various galactic governments. General Vexnoth appeared, his forearms crossed in a gesture of determination. Director Horthkin materialized nearby, looking nervous but resolute. "We have been working with volunteers from each species," Sarah explained. "Individuals who are willing to expand their consciousness beyond normal limits and contribute to the defense network." Zexhai watched as the alien volunteers began to interact with the human network. Their minds, represented by different colored lights, connected to the vast web of human consciousness. The effect was immediate. The flickering sections of the network stabilized and grew brighter. "It is working," Sarah said with evident relief. "The combined mental resources of multiple species are stronger than we hoped. But we need more volunteers, and we need them quickly." The scene around them changed again. Now Zexhai could see the barriers from the outside, as the hungry entities perceived them. The walls of energy that protected the galaxy looked thin and fragile from this perspective. Cracks were spreading through the dimensional barriers, and the things in the darkness were pressing harder against the weakening defenses. "How much time do we have?" Zexhai asked. "Months, perhaps years if we are fortunate. The rate of decay is accelerating. Without additional support, the barriers will collapse completely. And if they do collapse," Sarah's expression became grim, "then everything in this galaxy will be consumed. Every world, every star, every living being will be unmade. The entities beyond the rim do not conquer or enslave. They simply erase everything they touch from existence." Zexhai felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. "What do you need me to do?" "Return to your people. Explain what you have seen here. Help them understand that this is not about human superiority or alien submission. This is about survival itself. We need every species in the galaxy to contribute whatever they can." The chamber began to fade around them. Zexhai found herself back in her office, but Sarah Chen remained visible. "There is something else," Sarah said. "Something we have not told the Galactic Council yet." "What is it?" "The entities beyond the rim are not the only threat we face. There are others closer to home who would prefer to see the barriers fail." "What do you mean?" "Some of the older species in the galaxy remember the time before humans began maintaining the defenses. They remember when reality was more fluid, when the laws of physics were more flexible. They see our barriers not as protection but as oppression." Zexhai felt another chill. "Are you saying some galactic species are working against you?" "We are saying that not everyone wants to be saved. Some beings prefer chaos to order. Some minds hunger for the dissolution of structured reality. They see the approaching collapse as an opportunity, not a threat." "Who are they?" "We are still identifying them. But we know they exist, and they are working to sabotage our defenses from within. This is another reason why we need allies we can trust." Sarah began to fade away. "Be careful, Zexhai. Not everyone who claims to support the defense effort has pure motives. Trust your instincts and remember that the survival of everything you know depends on the choices made in the coming months." The human woman vanished, leaving Zexhai alone with the knowledge that the galaxy faced not one crisis, but several. The barriers were failing. The entities beyond the rim were pressing closer, and unknown enemies were working from within to ensure that the defenses collapsed. She looked out her office window at the stars beyond New Geneva Station. Somewhere out there, 14 billion human minds were linked in a desperate effort to hold back the end of everything. And now, for the first time in millions of years, they were not fighting alone. But would it be enough? The answer to that question would determine whether galactic civilization survived to see another dawn, or whether everything would be consumed by the hungry darkness that waited beyond the edge of space. As Zexhai began composing her report to the Vorthon government, she realized that her simple question about human space had led to the most important moment in galactic history. The map no longer ended at human territory. It now extended into realms of reality that most species had never imagined. The real universe was far stranger and more dangerous than anyone had known. But now at least they had a chance to face it together. Whether they would succeed remained to be seen. But for the first time since the crisis began, Zexhai felt something that surprised her. Hope.